Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us this 22nd of December 2014 as we as we go into the last 7 trading days of the year. Certainly it's a holiday week. It's short full day today, tomorrow, shortened day on Wednesday. We close at 1 in the U.S. and full day on Friday. But the anticipation is a less volume day, less participants at work, and if they are at work, what are they doing? Um, so clearly, we're getting into a holiday mood here in the ES. We are higher by 5.00 at 2072, and certainly last week did not prove to be uh, moves with conviction as we finished out last week. We'll get into that in a moment. This morning, crude oil lower by $1. Weakness in crude once again. We'll go over certainly comments out of Saudi Arabia with respect to oil. Currently, West Texas Intermediate crude at 56.02. Gold higher by 50 cents at $1,196.50, within range of that 1200 that we've been discussing. That 1200 is just seems to be very attracted to that 1200 range. We'll see where we go from there. The 10-year at 2.181 yielding, and the dollar index, the DXY, the index against 10 other currencies this morning, lower by 0.068 at 89.554. So let's jump into Friday's day. Certainly, let's just say half of the day. We certainly had the second half of the day on Friday, as we've been discussing lower volume, and really, folks, getting ready for the holiday week this week. We really just had a positive momentum for most of the trading day. We really had a late day rally and positive close on the S&P 500. The S&P 500 finished higher by 0.46% at 2012.89, where the Dow Jones Industrial finished higher by 0.15 at 17,356.87, and the Nasdaq higher by 0.36%. So what's making news? We're not short of news this morning. Of course, very interesting conversation with respect to overnight and over the weekend with respect to geopolitical and macroeconomic. Certainly keeping an eye on the Middle East with respect to ISIL. We mentioned last week that a U.S. military official commented that ISIL situation could really last for the better part of 3 years going forward. So this is a situation that could have been already digested and incorporated into the market. Let's just say quantified into the marketplace, into the markets, in the the larger indices, short of any calamities or severe events that could alter that perception. But that's really the thought process behind ISIL, and that's why we really don't hear too much. We don't see too many headlines coming out of ISIL. Again, we're keeping a good close eye and ears towards how things progress over there. So also Russia, OPEC response to oil prices. One of the things that we've also discussed is with respect to Russia and the Ukraine. Certainly all eyes have been on oil. Certainly the precipitous decline in oil as of late. Um, Certainly brought some concern to larger countries such as Russia. Also, although Putin is rather defiant, but certainly. Should anything else come out of the Russian-Ukraine situation that would be exogenous, again, the markets seem to have digested that situation, understood that an easy solution may not be possible quickly, but again, should something come out, we'll always keep an ear and eyes and ears out going into the future. Also, with respect to oil prices, we had some interesting headlines today out of one is Kazakhstan saying they are prepared for oil as low as $40 per barrel, according to Reuters. Also, Saudi Arabia commenting, saying that they are convinced that OPEC has no interest of producers to cut production, quote unquote, whatever the price is, and say they, quote unquote, may not see oil back to 100. So clearly, that is, in our view, a rather aggressive statement, and really pointing to the fact that they're very, whether it's a political move, whether, there's some conversation whether or not, um, are they wanting to make the shale drillers in the U.S. Sweat a little bit, perhaps, but again, comments like this make it interesting markets as we've seen. Oil currently at $56.10, down by about $1. We mentioned China, we mentioned Russia and the ruble. One of the things that certainly the volatility of the ruble as of late has been nothing short of astonishing, and the Russian central bank has has clearly wanting to support the ruble, even though some time back Russia was discussing the concept of the notion of a free floating ruble, and we certainly came out and in utter disbelief of that. With we take those things with a grain of salt, but at the same time, Russia has been speaking to China, and we know that they have, even from the sanctions that have been imposed and where they can deliver their commodities, raw materials. Certainly, China has stepped up in terms of buyers of that raw material, commodities, and so forth. And in that sense, in that same breath, China, it looks as if China and the Sino-Russian relationship will continue with respect to perhaps the support of the ruble. And folks, again, the volatility in the ruble is affecting both companies doing business in Russia, whether it's Western companies, and how they repatriate those funds out of Russia into their home countries. And if the ruble is rather weak, frankly, Econ 101, Finance 101, it's bad for these companies, right? And we'll touch a little bit greater. A little bit wider concept in a little bit with respect to the strength of the dollar, and what we'll see out of the fourth quarter, and so that's going to be interesting. But that's out of Russia there. Also, let's take a quick check on the Baltic Dry Index. This today drops more, 1.1% to 794 points. This has been a rather elongated drop in the Baltic Dry Index, and folks, this is one of the purest leading indicators with respect to how much is being shipped in raw material on cargo ships on a daily basis. And when we see a dropping of this consistently, you begin to question demand. You begin to question what's the macroeconomic of things, and we've been discussing that as well. 8:30, certainly we had the Chicago Fed National Activity Index. 10 o'clock, we have the existing home sales. So keep an eye on the Home Depots, the Lowe's. That could have an inflection. 1 o'clock is the results of the 27 billion two-year auction. So we'll see if that has an impact on that. Again, we wanted to put in there, but again, a lot of conversation with respect to FOMC and the fact that their statements more or less muddied the waters a little bit. And the fact that they took out considerable time and they plugged it in with patient. We talked about that. We talked about with Yohei from Forex Crunch. We talked about the fact that the Fed really wants to wait. They're gonna wait to shoot. They're not gonna shoot first and say please later. They're going to see where the economy goes. There's some conversation on Friday from Coach Lakota, from Lacker. Lots of activity with respect to commentary, but it seems like next year, middle of the year, it seems as though summer of 2015, the indication of first rate hikes. How quickly will they raise rates? Will they see the slack being removed? And will they see inflationary pressure with respect to wage increases? This is what they're waiting for with respect to employment, unemployment. So that's really a key there. We wanted to put that up there. They really didn't talk about the global risks or Russia. They didn't talk about oil. And they really talked about, quote unquote, the monetary policy will be accommodative for a long time. So clearly the Fed really wants, specifically the U.S. economy, to in the greater to really sustain some kind of growth before they set in with rate hikes. So let's continue here, folks. Couple of things we wanted to bring up, and right before we get into the technical analysis of the things, and Milton's going to come in just a few moments or two, and this is something I want to ask him as well. We had so many analyst predictions for 2014, and you know what, folks? How many of those analysts were wrong? When we take a look at how many analysts predicted continuation and strength in oil, how many analysts predicted a 3% yield in the 10-year? How many, and on the other side, how many analysts predicted a complete destruction in the markets? How many analysts predicted that every economy will just cease to exist? So really, we wanted to bring this up, and I'll ask Milton this. We always talk about this due diligence. Read, ask, talk to, have an opinion, because analysts are also human beings, right? They make mistakes. There's wrong indications, and even we've seen with the corrections both in October and as of late, there's clearly a bid in the market, and of course going into the holiday season, there's a bid in the market. It seems as though a little bit of elation coming in, whether it's sustained or not, we'll see. So, Milt, let me ask you something. It's I would think if I would be a trader first coming into this market, my head would be spinning. How many analysts were wrong on oil is brutal. I mean, how many people got absolutely destroyed with that oil trade? How many?
George.
A huge amount, don't you think?
I can guarantee you, if people were trading oil, they had no idea what they were getting themselves into.
Right.
Initially, with the initial drop, thinking, "Oh well, this is not going to happen. They're going to cut." They have no idea what's going on. I guarantee you, 90% of any energy trader probably got smacked around big time when in this oil trade, trying to be a hero and find the bottom. In all reality, like we always mentioned, you just can't be a hero regarding oil. Who knows where it's going to go? The Saudis clearly are not going to cut. Unless something extraordinary happens, they are not going to do anything. And people still believe it's going to happen. Those people are the ones who are going to be believing it Those people are the ones who are going to keep thinking and believing they're right when oil hits the 40s and thinking, oh, well, they're still going to cut. What if they don't? What are you going to do next? A lot of negative Saudi comments this morning, them even mentioning the fact that they could see it in the 20s and not care. They mentioned the fact that they may never see $100 barrel oil again. So clearly, everyone has been wrong on oil. Sometimes you got to pack up those bags and move on to a new trade. You can't sit there and think you are going to be right. When you purchased oil when it was in the 70s, 80s, and you're buying it back in the 40s, you clearly were wrong. Sometimes take the ego away, make the trade, get out of a bad position, and move on. There's thousands and thousands of other names to play in this market. Don't be a hero. Don't add to a losing position. Take the chips off the table and move. Just like when you're at the casino, you're playing blackjack. If you start getting a bad shoe, you start thinking to yourself, you know what? You got to get up, take the chips off the table, go to a new table, and see and press your luck there. You don't stay at a losing trade. You don't stay at a losing table. You always get up and move around. That's my feel on oil. Technically on oil, ideally, you want to base at 55. If that 53.60 number is broken, you're going to see the 40s. You're going to see the 40 handles. You're going to break 53.60. You're going to have an extended downtrend. You're going to see the 40s. So we're watching the 53.60 number, keeping an eye on that level, keeping an eye on the 55 level, and hopefully it could stabilize here and maybe get a quick pop into the 60s. But ideally, I don't think it's going to happen. But what do I know? I'm just, on here talking right now, basically. So I have no, just like everybody else, who really knows exactly what's going to happen with oil. Let me just jump on the ES real quick. Let me just give a quick rundown on the text. ES. What can I say about the ES? You rallied, what, 90 handles? 110 handles in 2 days? Yeah, okay. So, what I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless regarding that kind of a move. But it is what it is. This market is what it's been going on for the past 2, 3, 4 years. Resistance numbers, we're looking at 2075, 2079 previous highs. Support intraday at 2066 with an ideal level around the 2050 levels. So we're watching those levels, keeping an eye on those. It's going to be very limited trading, in my opinion, this week. Today, really do not have that much economic numbers. Tomorrow, you do have a flurry of some economic fuel. But as of today, could be a slow day, going into tomorrow, going into the U.S. holidays, and going into the end of the week. We're hearing a lot of people are actually starting to take days off sooner rather than later, so you may not have the big boys around. Keeping an eye on that, keeping an eye on volume. Really do not think we're going to have extreme volatility this week, but who really knows? We did oil. You know my feel on oil. Don't be a hero. If you're going to miss a $3, $4, or $5 move, I'd rather miss it and make sure and be confident rather than being a hero and buying it and coming in and it being down almost $1 this morning. So, don't take chances. In this business, you gotta have that conviction. Moving on from oil to the VIX, we mentioned the 16 to 18 support. Closed at 1649 on Friday in that support level. We'll see what happens this morning. Keeping an eye on that levels, keeping an eye on the resistance support. But as of now, we have the 16 to 18 support. We're in that range. If that level breaks, we can see that 14 handle again. If not, you can go back into the 20s. I want people to keep an eye on one thing real quickly before I do gold, which is gold is typically the IBB, the Biotechnology Index, is really getting walloped this morning. There was some news this morning on some Gilead pricings and all that, so keep an eye on those, on that index. Hearing a lot of people, a lot of desks mentioning that this could be the end of the bull market in biotech. We're watching. We're keeping an eye. We'll get a feel better after the few days, and we'll see what the reaction and the move in this ETF goes. Gold. Gold's gold. Gold's at 1,200 plus or minus. It's going to build, trying to build a flag pennant here. We're watching it. We're keeping a close eye on it. If it breaks above it, we will let everybody know. But as of now, it's building that base at 1,200. This is what the oil needs to do, building that base at 55. We're building it at 1200 on gold, watching these levels, keeping an eye on it. If it breaks to the upper downside, we will make sure we let everybody know. But as of now, it's just frolicking around in this 1200 plus or minus number. That's the feel on tech this morning. Hopefully everybody has a good trading day, good holiday week, so don't go crazy. Trade with conviction, and hopefully you can make some money.
Right, thanks. And I think don't overtrade, folks. As we're going through this information, don't overtrade. It's very easy in a low volume environment to see possible moves in whether it's larger indices to overtrade something. One of the things that I noticed on Friday is the ES. If you take a look at the ES on Friday, so many times you see this for just about from about an hour or so after the open. It just got into this range, and it just kept on trying to make a move and make a move. Finally, it did, certainly right in that 2:40 hour and the late day hours we talked about. But it's really easy to overtrade these types of markets, and really just that's one thing just to keep in mind. And lower volume days, certainly moves can be made, but be careful with moves without conviction. You can really churn stuff through on these kind of days. Let's move on here. Let's take a look at where we are in overnight markets. And while we're doing that, let's see, ES is higher by 3.25. Certainly not the high of the day, but just off by about, we're looking at about 5 points off the high of the day. So we'll continue to monitor that. Asia, we have Nikkei higher by 0.08%. Hang Seng higher by 1.26%. Shanghai higher by 0.61% in Asia. So clearly a positive move in Asia. In Europe, we have the FTSE higher by 0.87%. CAC in Paris higher by 0.55%. DAX in Germany higher by 1.03%. IBEX in Spain lower by 0.19%, 16%, excuse me. With respect to, if you are watching oil, perhaps you just have it up in one of your mock portfolio. Maybe you decided not to trade it. You're heeding some of the warnings, and you may want to take a look at OIHs. And when you get into the OIHs, when we post these things in the room, into the unusual activity information, we sometimes post the OIHs in addition to. But keep an eye on that. Really understand where the OIH is comprised of. It's an ETF. Who are the major what are the major holdings in that particular ETF, and who's affecting what? So in the ETF, certainly Schlumberger, Halliburton is responsible for something like 33 or 34% of the move in the OIH. So just something that's something that you want to keep an eye on as you're monitoring these particular securities and larger indices. In the commodities, energy, and raw material space, we have crude oil, again, lower 81 cents, a little bit off its low here, $56.32 this morning. In the distillates, gasoline is lower by 0.0099, excuse me, at 1.5496. Natural gas at 3.194, lower by 0.27. Heating oil is lower by 0.0146 at 1.9476. We are having a rather warmer December in the Northeast, so that certainly could be affecting at least demand for the distillates. Gas is down, so it's putting more money into consumers' pockets. Gold lower by 60 cents at $1,195.40. Silver down by 0.045 at $15.98. Um, we have platinum higher by 50 cents, excuse me, at $1,197.30, and cocoa higher by $4 at $29.84. On the yields, let's get into yields a little bit here. We have the 5-year coming up in yield a little bit at 1.657 than we were about a week ago. 10-year at 2.178, and the 30-year at 2.780. When we're taking a look at the yield curve here, folks, bear with us. When we're taking a look at the yield curve here, we have the current 2-year at 0.65, so that's a lower yield than we were. I'm sorry, forgive me. Current yield 2 years higher than we were a year ago and a month ago. On the 5-year, we're just where we were about a month ago. And really the difference there is the 10-year and the 30-year. Really yield coming in a little bit, even with respect to a year ago, and certainly lower than we were about a month ago. So that quote-unquote possible flattening of the yield or flatter yield curve, that's something that we want to keep an eye on pretty closely. We talked about the technical analysis, and so what we want to do is get into some of the specific stocks that are making news this morning. We have Oppenheimer raises price target on internet security names, and this is something certainly, is this a little bit late to the game? We certainly saw some very impressive strength out of FireEye on Friday, with a little bit of a profit taking in the later afternoon, but certainly Oppenheimer positive on internet security names, and that's Checkpoint, CYBR. We'll take a look at what these stocks are doing this morning. Checkpoint Software is not getting any indication yet. CYBR, FTNT. CYBR is higher in pre-market, currently at $42.53. FTNT, Fortinet, not showing indication yet. IMPV not getting anything yet in pre-market, and we're about a few minutes away from the open here. And certainly FireEye, as we talked about on Friday, was rather positive, and this is on the heels of the Sony fiasco with respect to cyber crime and North Korea and so forth. So we'll see how that. There's some conversation whether they used Chinese IP addresses, but I think the story, frankly, still unraveling. I think a little bit more news is going to be discussed. Milton brought up the IBB. This is the Nasdaq Biotech Index Fund, currently at $311.01 from a close of about $317 on Friday. And one of the conversation is Gilead Sciences could be one of the culprits. So Gilead Sciences closed just about 108 and a half on Friday. We're currently at $96.45. So clearly we have a bullish tone to that particular to the biotechs this morning. Just an interesting thing with respect to Meredith Whitney. If you remember, Meredith Whitney claimed fame during the financial crisis of 2008-2009, where she picked out the proverbial black swan, but her fund drops 11% as the office is put on market. So clearly, folks, it's not easy out there, and as analysts are right on some things, They'll certainly be wrong in a whole load of a lot of other things. And our job is to just point out really what's happening in the marketplace as it's happening, using the mosaic theory to really put things together using technical analysis, fundamental analysis, news flow, data flow, volume, and price movements, and that's what really makes a market, folks. And that's what we really want to head into here, folks. It's not just an analyst call. If you're just going just by analyst calls, it's going to be a tough road ahead. You really need to use everything at your disposal. We provide you here, and to really align yourself with the right trading mechanisms here. OCN Aquin had to resign in New York sentiment. Aquin Financial lower this morning at $19.80, currently open. We do have the markets open right now, and they're off. Airline charts, as Milton said, airline charts currently building a very bullish formation. Kind of makes me wonder how low oil really will go. Certainly, the lower oil goes, just something in mind. Clearly, it's a less of a cost for airlines to function, and so you'll get a little bit of a tick up in the market in the airlines as you get a tick down in oil. So, for example, American Airlines currently at $51.15. DAL, which is Delta Air, at $47.79. We have JBLU, which is JetBlue, at $15.44, up about 0.5%, and LUV, Southwest Airlines, currently at $40.58, up about 0.8%. And before we get into some of the insider purchases, which we feel are really important to monitor, we're seeing a precipitous decline in natural gas futures this morning at $3.194. And if we go back to Friday, we really saw that begin there right at almost the morning and early morning hours on Friday, really coming in on nat gas futures all day, and we're seeing some weakness in nat gas futures this morning as well. So let's get into a few things coming out with respect to syndicates. Want to pay some attention to this as well. BGSF selling about 800,000 shares to holders of holders. CAK selling 945 million shares for excuse me, for holders. Nothing yet in pre-market here. Dominion Resources automatic mixed shelf. Remember, mixed shelf is a excuse me, mixed shelf is can be anything from equities, preferreds, convertibles, fixed income. So it's a hodgepodge of it's a technical term. It's a hodgepodge of securities that is offered by firms in their secondaries, and really used for funding. So it tends to be a dilutive effect for the actual stock price, but not always. For example, Dominion is up 1.27%, but again, something to keep in mind. EBIO, 11 Biotherapeutics, lower by 0.75% this morning, selling 2.62 million shares for holders. GTXI selling 64 million shares for holders. Nothing yet in GTXI. IDN, IntelliCheck Mobilisa, higher by 11%, almost 12% this morning, sells $9 million of common stock, which is interesting there. NPTN selling 37 million shares of common stock, lower by 3% this morning. NUEM, New Media, selling $150 million worth of common stock. Stock is down just a little under 2%. And we have Zaza Energy Corporation selling 212,000 shares of common stock, not having anything yet in Zaza. We do have some IPOs for this morning. We have, um, we'll put them into this presentation. We have Yulong Eco Materials files a $10 million IPO. PUMP files for $45 million IPO, and RMIT files for $100 million IPO. And that's something, once they come out, we'll certainly post those into the Unusual Activity app. So definitely stay tuned to that app, and certainly feedback is always welcome as we're bringing that out. So let's jump into the insider transactions that we're seeing this morning. Let's see. Let's see. Let's start with HEI, Heiko Corp. We have a few insider purchases here. HEI. We have chairman and director and co-president purchasing about $350,000 worth of shares. Stock is up about 1% this morning at $58.67. RM Regional, we have CO purchases about $1 million worth. Let's see here, where are we here? RM stock is up about 0.5%. It's a rather impressive purchase. We have CODI. CODI currently at $700,000 purchase. Stock is about flat this morning at $16.37, up about 2 cents. But nice size purchase there. We also have LRE. LRR Energy. We have co-CEO purchasing about 200,000 shares worth. Stock is up about 0.5% at $7.52 this morning. We also have DVCR. We have let's see, just waiting for that coming. Really nothing coming in through this morning in terms of activity, but a little bit under 200,000 share purchase. Also, we have SJW. SJW, we have about $500,000 purchase from a director, currently by $31.67. Currently at $31.67, lower by about 0.4%. And let's see, we have a few very impressive purchase in NWBO. NWBO, Northwest Biotherapeutics, excuse me, lower by 1.39%. We do have a 10% owner purchasing $11 million worth. So really combined of about $12 million purchase. Again, currently at $5.66, lower by 1.4%. UPLD. Of UPLD Upland Software currently at $10.26, indicating higher by 13.25%. We did have about $250,000 purchase by a 10% owner in that securities. And we just have one more here for LTS, higher by 2%. We have a director purchasing $200,000 worth. And stock is currently $4.09. So as we see where the markets are, we have the S&P futures higher by 2 points at 2069.26. Watch for that 2066 level. Remember, any move you want to have volume and conviction. It's not always that it's clear cut. But folks, we thank you for joining us this morning. This has been Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Maimonides. We wish you a great day and good hunting.